No, there we go. Hi again, my name is Bruce. I'm a wildlife biologist with zoology degree. I've done lots of stuff like you guys, so there's my introduction. So, how was the Mexican food? Now you understand why the Mexicans invented siesta. So, anyway, it was good, but then you get the food coma. Anyway, yesterday afternoon, we had a discussion, some of you were here for it, about getting things done. And so the impossibilities that seem to face us at the higher levels of government, corruption, ignorance, just basically other priorities. And it coincided with the presentation I'm doing here. I used to be with the Arizona Department of Transportation. And wildlife connectivity, connecting habitats, preventing wildlife and people from killing each other on highways was a priority. And how are we going to work together to do this? Okay, the challenges, you can see from the little comic that's more real than not, is we're running out of space and we're running out of resources, which ultimately will kill us, even though some people seem to be blind to that. All right, so how did we do this? We have this daunting task. In America, you have the government, the state, the federal, the cities and municipalities. Then you have the rancher and the oil company and the rivers that are protected. And how are we going to get everybody to work together? And I had a picture I didn't have inserted here. It was an old-fashioned movie, black and white, of everybody beating each other up in a bar, and that was kind of what we all do when we try to accomplish something. So what we did is we started at our level, like us in this room. And these logos on the bottom represent, state, federal, environmental groups, Forest Service, ranchers, whatever. And one thing everybody had in common was cars were killing cows or wildlife. Hunters were upset because the elk population was dropping. Residents were dying on the highways. The government was being sued by people who were injured driving because it was their fault. Blah, blah, blah. Everybody had an interest. And we started not at the top, just us, like in this room. And we got together and said, how are we going to do this, So, not easy, you could see it. Set up a meeting and a process to do wildlife and road ecology. And this was the product. You can look this up online. I have a hard copy. It's basically a map book of the whole state of Arizona, broken down into geographic segments, showing the highways, rivers, cities, everything, and the crossings that we identified using data of all types to determine where animals were crossing, including fish, and what kind of animals, why were they crossing there, was it a riparian area, a space between mountain ranges, blah, blah. Okay, so why did we do it? Improve highway safety and create permeability for wildlife to move between habitats. And here's some, you want to hit people, it works, scare them, or money. So, 1 million deer and vehicle collisions occur in the US annually, every year. 1 million cars hit deer, and only about half of that's reported, so you could estimate 2 million just deer, not badgers and squirrels and elk, deer. 26,647 motor vehicle occupants are involved in crashes every year and go to the emergency room. And there's usually 200 people killed colliding with animals just in the US. All right, wildlife vehicle collisions account for a significant amount of the accidents, injuries and deaths in Arizona. Most of your accidents are wildlife related, and that's from Highway Patrol data. All right, current state of practice. Usually the police officer will take down some info Sometimes they can't tell the difference between a deer and a squirrel. I know that shocks you. Collisions are not always recorded, and we got highway patrol to give us maybe a mile marker or something. Where did this hit happen? Identifying what happened. Again, this is a squirrel, this is a deer, and no, deer and elk are different. The data is often pretty lousy, and once the data is gathered, it may not be mapped or usable. All right, so the assessment we did in Arizona fits into a bigger strategy. And believe it or not, this is real. Now, I know this occurs all over the world, Africa, Australia, on a smaller scale. But basically, we're connecting the Yukon to Mexico down to the Yucatan that doesn't show. You can see the bigger map on the lower left. And a lot of that is contiguous now, and some are very small strips of protected area. But basically, if you're a wolf, theoretically, you can go all the way down. I'm not guaranteeing you won't get run over or shot by an idiot or whatever, but that's our goal, connect the habitats. Okay, I put this up here because they reintroduced lynx in Colorado a few years ago. It was extirpated. It's a Rocky Mountain species. So you have lynx in Europe, Spain, similar to the caracal in Africa and so forth. But what was interesting about this is they attached radio collars and satellite tracked this animal. And we lost track of it. And I don't know if you're familiar with the whole U.S., but Colorado's a pretty good walk from northern Arizona. And within a year, this lynx was killed by accident on the Hopi Reservation, Hopi Indian Reservation in northern Arizona. So it went from montane forest, high elevation habitat to, Colorado desert. And that's where it was killed. So we found out black bears cross the Sonoran Desert at night between Sky Islands. And, everywhere the population is growing. Now, this really makes an impression. Around the world, people see maps of the earth or, a state or something. It looks like that. Wow, look at all that land. Why are all these crazy, wacko environmental people whining all the time? There's plenty of room. Look at those mountains. A mountain lion or a tortoise can get around fine. Well, this is just south central Arizona, okay? And what I'm about to show you are only the paved roads, not counting the gravel or dirt roads, okay? You ready? All that green. And if you're a tortoise about here, or here, or here, you got big problems. What are your chances of just moving around here without getting run over? Okay? So we have found that like snakes, tortoises, herps, invertebrates, animals with a localized habitat can be wiped out within a couple of years just by one road being put in. Okay, and some people have said the impact of one road is 1 to 20 miles out in each direction, depending on the species. All right, so, that's in Canada down here. They really kind of started with the first big crossings in Banff National Park. Here's one of our wildlife crossings in Arizona. It's a bridge, and they go under it, but here's one that just got killed because it wouldn't go under the bridge. We got everybody in the room together. Ranchers, biologists, highway patrolmen, zoo, you get it, everybody. 320 people. And then we said, what part of Arizona do you live in? So we put them in, 10 different tables for each. And they all sat around and said, I'm a rancher, and I know in this part, the elk really use this area. And down here, the Gila monsters and tortoises. So we got all this stuff out of here, and on to maps, literally taking stuff on a table with colored markers first. Here you go. And it, you know, local and regional expertise. It was science-based, you know, how to collect data, what data is available. GIS is critical. And we started making these maps. Okay, what habitats are we trying to connect? That's your first question. If you can't connect everything, you've got to prioritize the biggest bang for your buck. You know, the optimal connection for the least amount of hassle or money. Are these the best linkages and crossing areas out there? Because you're going to spend money. You're going to go to politicians. You're going to go to the public. And you're going to have to explain why you're putting it here. And scientific data will back that up. This is an actual jaguar taken by a rancher's remote camera in southern Arizona. We have jaguar and ocelot in Arizona again. But we don't tell everybody where they are. Okay? I'm not going to torture you with that, but you get it. It's just a lot of coordination. Again, starting basically right at the grassroots and working your way up in the process. Habitat blocks are large contiguous blocks of habitat consisting of public, tribal lands, whatever. Usually not private lands because it's such a hassle, you know what I mean, to coordinate that. Sometimes a rancher might coordinate with you, but usually you work with public lands or tribal lands. A fracture zone would be an area like Tucson, you know, where areas of reduced permeability exist, and there's, you know, private land, whatever. Now, animals go through here. Javelina, kangaroo rats, deer, mostly through riparian areas or desert washes. Golf courses, great place to view wildlife in the United States. All right, potential linkages. You know, a portion or subset of habitat block or fracture zone under threat. So wherever you are in the world, you know, if you've got a volcanic park over here and a wetland over here, and there's a big highway through it, and they're planning a Walmart or, you know, parking lots or to expand it, that's an area you want to say, okay, we got to focus on those areas first, protect what we have left. Riparian habitats. In Arizona, we've lost, that's a pretty map, but we've lost 95%. These are all dry or drained because of water use. But in the deserts, riparian areas, even dry washes, are highways for wildlife, especially at night. And I'm sure this is true all over the world. Also for fish. And here's like our master map we created. It was about this size behind me. It's also in that book you saw. In the book, we broke it down by little pieces. That's what the book is. So we identified 152 linkages. You see them? These are crossing sites. And it's continually being improved and revised. And we hope to double it. And we did. Okay, each linkage zone, what agencies are involved, who owns the land, what kind of ecoregion is it, Sonoran Desert, Colorado Plateau, what are the species there, and the biotic communities, and this is important, threats. When you're looking at the threats, cars, ATVs, opportunities, well, you know, the ATV doesn't care if he goes over a bridge or a culvert. So. Okay, and then land ownership. This shows all the different land types by color in Arizona. But as you know, wildlife ignore boundaries. There are none. Threats and opportunities. One big one is the giant fence our last idiot President Bush proposed for the United States. You know, and you know, we've got lots of animals cut off because of this brilliant tactic. So threats, Opportunities. The Forest Service has a transportation plan. Talk to your city or the townspeople. How about, leaving the washes alone at night for wildlife to use? Or maybe we'll make this side of the town and park a wildlife place too. Whatever you can do. Plant more trees so more birds come through, On migration, they need food and water. Little things at our level, not some moron, in Congress or Parliament. And so there's less than a handful of crossings that currently exist across canals. All the canals in the United States, there's hardly any way to get across them. And we found once 12 Sonoran pronghorn, an endangered species, drowned in one canal because they fell in and couldn't get out. I mean, a couple of boards, this isn't rocket science. Border security, military activities, railroads, these are all issues. And of course, not just the cuddly polar bear and squirrel, but Gila monsters, rattlesnakes, that sort of thing. Biotic communities, you identify those. Not going to really get into that, but ecoregions, make sure, work with your nature conservancy or anybody. Yeah, and that's just it, is look how many people, wherever you're from, are doing something. Mapping, studying, politicians, ranchers, highway people, and we don't talk to each other. Engineers, bridge builders, fishermen, you got to start there. And you know what? To our shock, it was easier to start at the bottom and go up than try to go up and get it all to come down. And the other thing is, like, I worked at the Arizona Department of Transportation, is we got this started and my director goes, what's going on? We're winning all these awards and we're on the news and whatever. And I go, well, it's kind of got out of control, but it's a good thing. He goes, yeah, I'm getting credit for it. This is great, Okay. So, it's not a bad thing. Everybody wins as long as, money is a limiting factor. In our country, the insurance companies, remember, if you lower accidents, everybody's insurance rate goes down. The Federal Highway Department gets sued, or the state gets sued, because in the United States, the animals, the wildlife, is the property of the state. Well, why did your elk kill my friend? See? And then they sue the state of Arizona, and they pay millions. How about just building a bridge, or you take a culvert, right, and make it bigger so, warthogs could go under it, or wombats, or whatever. A lot cheaper than writing $6 million checks a couple of times a year. And keep out there, we need to talk more. Get involved, cities and counties, bond initiatives, green space planning. Talk to contractors and consultants. They'd love to do this work. Somebody will pay them. Planners, land management agencies, government growth initiatives. Okay, and integrate connectivity into transportation and regional plans. Again, in your country, are you talking to your transportation people, your city planners, your dam builders, your railroads? You get it, and work together and show them how this will bring money in, save lives. Everybody wins. Identifying where to put the linkages is just the first step. It's a big one. And what needs to be done to secure that? Is it government land? Is it a ranch land? Is it a wetland? What permits do you need? You get that all worked out. And then you get into analyzing the site. Is it better to go under the road? Is there already a pipe under the road we can take out, make bigger, so that elk go through? Also, you saw that elk dead right next to the bridge. Well, we had to put elk fence along the highway and funnel them to you funnel the animals, toads to elk, and they will go under. Thank you. And another thing we found, and we put cameras under the some of these bridges, or underpasses as we call them. Like at Bighorn at Hoover Dam, I was part of that project, the Bighorn sheep overpasses. Sheep do not like to go under, and they follow the ridges. So what do? We put in 4 or 5 on the ridges, and just threw some dirt and rocks on it and put a fence up so they didn't go off the bridge. And they use it all the time. Then we had cameras in Arizona. One bridge on each side of the underpass were straight walls. Okay, and the herd of elk would come up, and they'd look at both sides of the bridge and go, turn around and leave. Yet 5 miles away, where the bridge sides weren't straight, they were sloped, elk looked and went straight through. And they're afraid of mountain lions. They don't like the sheer walls, but if you slope it, they feel safe. Now, this is, how do you learn that? It's observation and data collection. Okay. This is a real picture. Can you believe that? This is sad. They are trying to get, if you're an animal out there trying to get from point A to point B, it's rough. This is not a joke either. Okay, so we need a worldwide vision for protecting and restoring habitat connectivity, which is vital for maintaining healthy populations and native species. That on top that's going to make you throw up. Okay, it stopped. But that link right there, you could look it up and see that example, that book. It's also on disc. I just don't have any. But this was so popular, we became a world model. I was invited to Mexico, which I gladly accepted, and flew down to the Yucatan, to the Mayan Biosphere Preserve at Calakmul, and helped them identify jaguar crossings, which are there today. And Australia has consulted with us, Europe, Africa. And, the whole point of this is it kind of started like, what are we doing? How are we going to do this? Who's involved? And you form a steering committee. And then you get everybody and their mother together in a big room and get everything out of their brains, what they know on paper. And then you just the snowball keeps getting bigger, okay? Starting from the bottom, because only you know where you're from, what the species are, who the landowners are, what the challenges are, and what the possibilities are. And the government politicians, they love it when they look good. You know what I mean? And when you tell them we're saving money, we're lowering death rates, we're lowering insurance, more tourists come now, they could see the wildlife and nobody's killing them, you get it, Cities want more parks, we want more fish through the bridges and all that. So that's kind of my point. And that's a good example, I hope, as an answer to yesterday's question about what are some strategies of working together. Thank you.
We have 1 minute for a question. One question, please.
Okay, we're going to...
Young ladies.
Okay, thank you so much. In your presentations, you said this is the second time you cannot go to politician and ask why. Okay, but for me, I think in every country has to take responsibility to protect the people, the welfare, and the environment.
I agree.
Because in my country, we have environmental regulations. And we apply trial politics, executive, legislative, and judicative, where legislative who create the product of law and executive who apply what is written in regulations.
I agree. The problem isn't that we have laws, and they are required to do that, but in reality, they don't. And the first programs they will cut to save money so they could build their aircraft carriers or environment, education, and health in the United States. Any government, I don't care, I'm sorry,
In United
any
States.
government has a wonderful story to tell you. You know, they're here for the people, and
Yeah,
they're gonna,
Indonesia.
but the reality is they don't want to spend money, and environment is not the priority. So I'm suggesting we start at the bottom and then present them with an alternative.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.